Welcome to Video Game Movie Anatomy. Tonight we are going to be doing the follow-up to Indie Game the Movie, which is Indie Game Life After. We're going to be talking about where the people ended up after this amazing documentary hit the airwaves. So please, join us, won't you?
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Video Game Movie Anatomy.
Hello everybody out there on the internet. Welcome to another episode of Video Game Movie Anatomy. We got the squad back!
We're back!
Yes. I'm very happy to have you back, Patrick. It's way too long in between when we see you.
It pains me when I'm not here. This was exciting though. This week I got to listen to the show. I actually participated. I cheered along with you guys. I was there in spirit. That's the point.
Oh, you were here. The positivity corner came through.
Good.
Did hardcore in this one.
All about callbacks. So this one's going to be a little bit interesting. We're a little bit more off the cuff. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about Indie Game Life After, which is a collection of some of the epilogues, behind the scenes, deeper dives, other developers.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be, we're going to be talking about the nature of game design as well as what success can do to somebody. We're currently listening to some Spelunky tunes.
Yes, we are.
For those of you who haven't heard the show before, let's go through introductions. Patrick, you first.
Hello, I'm Patrick Dees. You can find me on Twitter at P to the D's.
Stacey.
I'm Stacey Shuttleworth. You can find me on Twitter at Stacey Shuttles or on Twitter and all over the web at Nerds Doing Stuff because I'm a nerd doing stuff.
I love the plug.
Nailed it.
So good. And I'm the internet's Mark Donica. You can find me at Mark Donica, where most Mark Donicas are sold. Not everywhere. Still working on Kmart. But please make sure to hit me up. All sorts of nerdy, silly stuff coming out of my Twitter face. So yes, last week, if you missed our episode, we talked about Indie Game the Movie in depth. We're going to kind of be fleshing in and out from it because this is directly related to it. But Patrick, since you weren't here,
yes,
what is your thought on Indie Game the Movie?
Look, so for me, two steps back. Usually we get on the show and it's just this. I try to be the bastion of positivity, but it's a lot of opposition. We're watching a lot of hot garbage, right? And I think
that was a nice way to put it.
I mean, yeah, it's tough week in, week out. And I think I travel a lot professionally, and once in a while I've got to miss the show. It really bummed me out that I had to miss this episode because I think Indie Game the Movie is a little bit magic. Here's the thing. I think games are incredible. Obviously, they're my recreation of choice, my escapism of choice. But I think they're magic. And I think what's cool about this film for me, and I don't know if you guys felt the same way, was I think everybody has some baseline understanding of how a film is made, right? Like a film is announced, you have kind of understanding like there's actors and there's camera, and we understand like more or less, 18, 24 months, we see the film go like shows up in theaters.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people have almost no context to understand how a video game is made and send terrible things to developers like your game's not even out, or homophobic or misogynistic slurs at people when people take their time with games. And so to see people struggle and really show that insight as to like what it takes to get a game off the ground, these things that I think largely we take for granted. I know I personally do. I think it feels what's his quote at the beginning of the film, right? When he talks about it's the amalgamation of all types of media all in one. How could it not be awesome? Like when you very first meet kind of Phil in the film, it's optimistic Phil, happy Phil, not the I'm going to kill myself Phil. And so for me, this movie was kind of like a really cool look, and it was captured like what a cool time, right? Like when this was going on, this was kind of like this was the tip of the sword, if you will, for the success of indie studios, right? Like really put that space kind of on the map. Historically, it'd been pretty ruled by AAA and to a lesser degree kind of AA games. And these were the first kind of like batch of mega successful indie games. And I just thought it was awesome to see, right? Just like there are people on the other side of these games and real genius behind them. And I think in ways that they don't necessarily always get credit for. So it was a delight to hear you guys talk about it. And I think if you're watching this, you probably have seen it, but if for some reason you've found our YouTube link or a podcast, you still have not seen it and enjoy video games in any capacity, or hell, just enjoy tales of triumph and struggle and ultimately success in a lot of these cases, check out Indie Game the Movie.
Which studio story was your favorite?
Look, I think I'm a little bit biased because I think John Blow is unmitigated genius.
Okay.
I think Jonathan Blow, and that Braid is deserves all of the accolades that it's gotten. But I gotta say, like for me, it was really interesting to watch Phil Fish because I think to some degree the man's just completely vilified all over the internet. People love to say they hate Phil Fish. They love to say they hate it, and they maybe not even be able to tell you what game he's associated with. People just love to hate that guy.
Him.
Totally.
No,
He has a very punchable face.
The internet told me to hate him. That's
So I
a
did.
lot of that was running rampant, especially around this time.
And I think he's such an interesting character. I mean, I get he's divisive, but I tend to like kind of divisive kind of characters anyway. He's a perfect subject for this film.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But just so transparent, right? Like, just like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. You guys touched on it last week, but that comment about like, what are you gonna do if you don't finish your game? I'm going to kill myself.
Yep, that was it.
And I shouldn't say it with a laugh. I just was like, I love that level of transparency. I feel like you don't get that in many mediums. So I'd probably, it's hard for me to say either way, but it probably the insight into to humanize Phil Fish.
Yeah. Did anybody go home and play any of these 3 games after the show?
I tried really hard and I just couldn't get the time to do it.
That's unfortunate.
I'm still going to play Super Meat Boy.
Super Meat Boy needs to be at the top of your
I'm
list.
going to play that game.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're a big Super Meat Boy fan.
I'm a big Super Meat Boy fan because I love perfect controls. I love
Yes.
platforming and the soundtrack and the way everything sort of came together in this. It's one of the better examples, I think, from the indie market of what the state of games can be.
Sure.
This is built by 2 guys, ostensibly, and it's one of the greatest platformers ever made.
Yeah.
Like not even exaggerating and not even trying to put it high on.
No, yeah, sure.
And
I just objectively love that game.
yeah. And it's from out of nowhere, like it's just Super Meat Boy. This seems interesting. Played it, fell in love with it, and started because it was connected with other indie games. That's how I started to play other indie games as well. And it's weird how a character that is just meat
Yes.
is so compelling, but he's pure, he's innocent, he just wants to save his girlfriend because it's the only person that can really hold him and it be okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
I have nothing to say about the evil Dr. Fetus, but when it comes to Meat Boy, that character, that guy, that game is my jam. But when was the last time you played Braid, Patrick?
Oh, it's been a minute. So I played Braid before I saw this film the first time. So
Yeah,
it's
launch.
been, at
Right.
launch, right? And was completely captivated. So I never actually did play Super Meat Boy. I know it's terrible. It's on my pile of shame, but I'm not normally a platform guy. The aesthetic and the audio of Braid, it was so unbelievable. Like, I mean, like just seeing screenshots, I was like, I really need to see that. And it's actually, I know we'll touch on it, but in this kind of life after, one of my favorite parts was learning about why they made those design those aesthetic choices, right? And he talked a little bit about the paint and why that was a deliberate choice, right? This was a world that something had been crafted, which means it can be altered. And I think so much of that, like, again, it was intoxicating, and it, especially as I played it, again, I'm not a platform guy, but understanding the story that is underneath Braid was fantastic.
Braid's being a platformer isn't inherently necessary to understanding the story. So I think that's one of the few that can really transcend the genre, where if you want to go super hardcore with it, then you go with Super Meat Boy.
For sure.
But why don't we talk about that, since you brought it up? David Hellman, who did the art for Braid, it was an extended piece about how he developed the visual style of Braid, seeing the hero evolve. And we sort of touched on this in last week's episode, is how much Braid was missing from the final documentary. Was this a step in the right direction, Stacey?
As far as what was changed or what they were talking about in the life after, how it progressed?
Well, I mean, in terms of what was this the right thing to show for people who wanted more Braid?
Oh, I think it was an interesting choice. I mean, I like seeing where it started from, things like that. So, and I think people who want to follow, like, kind of see where you start and get an idea of where people finish. So it's always interesting to see the final product versus what you get. It was a little, I guess, disconnected from the main storyline they had told about Braid beforehand.
And because it didn't directly reference Jonathan Blow, it was just like, hey, here's how we're building assets. But
No, just totally. And I think, like, okay, I think we'll take what we can get. Whatever insight into that Jonathan Blow's mind is fantastic, even if it's third person. But like, it really bummed me out that we didn't check back in with Blow. That was actually the impetus for me to like turn this on, because I know he's he's hard to get a hold of, and he's largely disconnected from his fan base at this point, right? Like some very weird tweets the witness was going up about urine in jars and things to that effect. But like he's not one that gives many interviews. So actually I was very kind of excited to dive into that. But like I said, I'll take what I can get. It was interesting to kind of see the process, and for me it was interesting to hear him say, look, Jonathan let me explore some of this. His first vision, like when he talked about the clouds, right? He talked about
the pretentious clouds.
Yes. And he had that picture of the clouds, right? He had like a JPEG placeholder, and then let the guy explore all these other themes and then ended on clouds because he had this vision of it. But like it was interesting to see a perfectionist collaborate with another perfectionist and what came out of it and how close it was to his original vision.
Right.
And seeing the sort of the stage building sets, you kind of see the background of everything. Would that have been a little bit too revealing? And because Stacey hasn't played it, would that have been a little too revealing to how the game's story evolves, do you think?
This interview?
No, not the interview. I mean the style that he was going for before they landed on clouds.
I don't think so. Do you?
I don't think so either.
Okay.
But I think the clouds are a better way to mask what comes.
Okay, I can see that. I love that the non-spoiler dance that we tend to do.
But that's
I know.
That's the thing about Raid.
Totally. You cannot know how that unfolds. You just have to experience it. It's one of those narratives. That
And people still aren't doing it for Limbo. People still aren't doing it for Inside, even though that was this past summer.
Can we talk about it? So one of the reasons you mentioned on last week's show that you were one of the reasons we're talking about this is just because The Witness is being released on Xbox One.
Yes.
And so let's get into the mind of Blow a little bit. And one of the things that you said that I just took all kinds of umbrage about. The one thing where I yelled at my phone as I was on a run was you said that the Abzu was probably a better game than Inside.
That's not what I said.
Okay.
I said that I enjoyed Abzu better than Inside.
That's fair. Okay.
I got a better feeling after playing Abzu than I did after playing Inside.
Okay, I will leave you with it makes you feel better. But I was like, okay, so I misheard, and like I broke a set of headphones. I tore them in. No, I didn't. I was just like,
that was your
Mark, what are you doing? Yeah, it was my controller test before your show. I was like, what are we even doing here? Okay, I stand corrected. You have my apologies.
I may have misspoke, but I apologize. No, I like them both.
Yeah.
Never mind. That's not what we're talking about.
I agree. That's not what
we're talking
that
about
off my
here.
chest.
That's not what we're talking about here. But I do agree that this was missing Jonathan Blow.
It was, right? Mm-hmm. Especially because he's such a pioneer in this space. And I understand he's not his MO, that he doesn't want to engage in things like this, but like he's kind of a...
This would be kind of disconnected enough, I think, to engage with and still put yourself out there for the community.
I sure did like his, so, and I'm kind of all over the map, and I don't mean to be, but I'm still on Jonathan Blow. Well, it was interesting to see their GDC talk after Phil made the comment about Japan.
The infamous Phil Fish hates Japan.
The Phil Fish, I mean, he does. He just slams Japan.
Clearly.
Clearly hates Japan, Phil.
I'm the internet.
Dude, that was heartbreaking. So that montage of the headlines popping up, and to his point, for people who weren't even there, have these type of commentary, and God bless the internet. But I did love Jonathan Blow coming back in and elaborating around the design principles that would lend themselves to saying, hey, this is almost a little bit the behind the times, right? Let's update UI, let's update the hand-holding nature of tutorials, those types of things. I really loved him being able to elaborate on that as opposed to they suck. Just hard stop. And I was like,
wow.
Say more, right?
Like, explain yourself.
And he, that man who made that was crushed.
Oh,
Absolutely crushed.
My heart hurt for that
It's one
man.
of my favorite games of all time, and the creator hates me.
Had you seen, let me ask you guys this, had you guys seen that footage before?
No?
I had not seen the full footage, no.
Me neither, because I obviously remembered when it happened, but I had never seen that out of context, so it was fascinating to see.
But it was also, it wasn't something that I started a crusade over. I was just kind of like, what a jerk. And then I went on with my day. Like, it wasn't anything huge.
I didn't take to Twitter like, look at this a-hole. Like, no.
How rational of you. How well-adjusted.
I really held myself together.
Miss
I
Shuttles.
didn't go on a rant.
You represent the internet very well.
Yes, you did. Raising the level of discourse.
The internet
One
bar.
person at a time.
But it was interesting to see because I also just got all of those headlines when that was happening. I tended to agree with them a little bit more. I think definitely their design philosophy, I mean, especially to what John Blow was saying, all of that I agree with, so it wasn't I figured that was some sort of out of context thing, but it was interesting to see that guy getting crushed in real time. It was just...
It was
still hurt. I mean, it was still a dick thing to say.
Right?
So, like, that poor guy.
And how he said it.
But yeah, that's
It
the
was
thing,
not
is it's
cool.
with Phil Fish, that of what we've learned from him from these two different pieces, he is not anything but a blunt person.
No, right?
He
yeah.
is up to, like, I'm going to kill myself.
Oh,
So
super
no jokes.
blunt.
That's it. I'm just gonna do it. So he's but with Jonathan Blow, because he is a little bit more of that artiste, he definitely knows how to speak a little bit better.
There's some tact.
tact,
And some precision.
tact and
Yes.
professionalism.
I mean, it was so...
Yeah.
very much so. And I think, like, so let me ask you this. Like, let's say you are... How would you have languaged that? If I asked you, not what your opinion is, but you're of the opinion that they suck. Like, if I go, Mark... Talk to me a little bit about like the current state of Japanese gaming. What's your response?
I think it needs improvement.
Right? Totally.
Just
much
starting that
softer.
different than hate them. They suck. Burn in a tire fire. Nintendo, I'm coming for you with a
What?
jerry can, and I'm just gonna torch the place to the
That's
ground.
all
Your days are
immediately
numbered,
implied. I mean-
Nintendo. Yeah, like I think there's been a great legacy of games there. Like they've obviously a storied past or whatever, and could learn in a cyclical industry. They could come around. You know, there's a million different ways to articulate that.
Especially when you know who you're talking to.
Right?
I mean,
You
you're
can see that
looking
guy.
at this person and
Yeah,
you go,
but
I hate them, you suck.
Who
Like,
is an indie dev, right? He was saying he was a developer.
and learning
Yes.
English and
Yes.
every, like there was
just-
no grace in Phil Fish's comment.
No, it was tough.
I will say I liked how the segment was cut together.
I do, too.
It fit within the realm and the story that the documentary was trying to tell. But then when it just went to the flat footage, I was
Yes.
like, oh, good. No, I
yeah.
liked it because then it's like, oh, now here presented without comment.
I totally
Okay.
agree. Yep, I agree. It's fascinating. And
Here-
glad they showed it.
Here's the story that we want to tell, but here is the
Make your
rest
own
of the story.
judgment.
Exactly. Same thing that they did with Edmund and Tommy versus the internets.
yes.
Uh-huh.
That was fun seeing Team Meat just unload on the internet.
man.
And it's interesting that everybody's gotten so reclusive. It's unfortunate that everybody's gotten so
I agree.
reclusive after the release of the movie and their games, respectively.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're not getting a Fez 2, despite all of the issues with Phil and him and the internet and everything, there's still a soft spot in my heart for Fez. And
Did you finish Fez?
I did not finish Fez,
Okay.
unfortunately.
I didn't either.
But I loved it while I was playing
Yep.
it. I love the world. I love the interaction. We talked about it a bit last week. I like hearing him describe the game as this is a love letter to games where you used to tell people like, oh, I heard that you can unlock this character Reptile if you do like 3 uppercuts
right.
and a thing. So that sort of storytelling and that communal, oh my God, this happened when I was here. I saw
Yeah.
this thing and it made a thing happen. And it became a communal experience.
Yes.
But it much like art, when somebody's trying to tell you how to understand it, people got really defensive. And
Sure.
like, no, I just like it for a different reason. And
Yeah.
it was spoken upon when Soulja Boy was playing Braid, and he was like, look, this dude, he just
Oh,
jumps,
totally.
and then he comes right
Yeah.
back. That's all there
No,
is. And just like,
You could see the rain.
I mean, and I think that's like what's fascinating about that, because you say what you want about Phil and not polished and whatever. Both he and Jonathan Blow are unmitigated geniuses. They have a vision
Absolutely.
for something, and like I will never tire of admiring people who bring things into this world, be it music, be it art. And this is, you know, again, kind of that cross section of both of those. They have a vision of what there wasn't Fez, and then there was, and to
Yeah.
me that's amazing. It's like there wasn't, you know, Nirvana, and then there was when Kurt Cobain, you know. I'm not saying that's a parallel, but
those are two big statements.
but you get, and not that they're a parallel, because I'm a huge Nirvana fan, and didn't finish Fez. My point is that like they're bringing something into the world, and so like it's interesting to see them, and it's not surprising that they bristle a little bit when. Like, can you imagine being Jonathan Blow and watching Soulja Boy play that and say that? I would lose my mind, and I've never done anything even remotely close to bringing something like that into the world.
Oh yeah, no, it would definitely rankle me. I'd be super irritated.
I would probably be very quiet. I would probably
Would you?
retreat to my study in the Jonathan Blow estate, because everybody knows he has a huge mansion. Internet. I would go to the freezer. I would take one giant cube of ice, place it in a glass, pour a tiny bit just a little bit of scotch. Good.
Just a
Tiny
little
bit.
bit?
Just a little bit.
And by a
Just-
little bit, you mean like
just
a
a
glass.
whole bottle?
That's what you're
Just
saying.
like a whole
a shot
bottle?
or so, something to enjoy.
Okay.
And then I would punch pillows.
Yeah. Okay.
That took a
There it
turn.
is.
No, I would take a glass, I would throw it
get
through
it.
the window, and then I would just beat
Oh,
everyone.
Yeah.
there
That
you
would probably
go.
just be really quiet. Just like.
Well, and what do you do after that? You can't really go out there and be like, hey, actually, this is what I mean. Because then, of course, people are going to be like, oh, what an asshole. Look
No,
at him
totally.
critiquing, like, how this person
Let
experienced
me play
the
the game like I want to play it.
Yeah, so I totally get it. And I also get, like, wanting to be understood as to
Yeah.
what you meant by,
For sure.
by something.
And seeing how I think here's the difference. Jonathan Blow is a genius who's trying to be an artist. Phil Fish is a genius who knows he's a genius.
Oh, I want to unpack that sentence a little bit. I think they're both acutely aware of how bright they are. And that's expressed
Okay.
differently, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yes.
I think like a self-aware genius comes across like an accurate self-evaluation for a genius comes across as vain, but it's just accurate. Jonathan Blow's saying I'm the smartest guy in the room is probably the truth. That's nothing that he said, but I'm saying like,
Yeah.
if he said
Right.
that occurs as vain and it's just accurate.
It's more a clinical assessment.
Correct.
Tool. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
in that
clinical's the
case.
right word, right?
I'm
That is
saying
a
that-
sterile evaluation.
Right.
Yep.
There's no emotion
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
not
attached
at
with
all.
that.
And I'm saying more the problem of perception isn't with the person in question.
Sure.
It's with society's view
Yep.
on them. Like we just pulled up a picture here that has Phil Fish, gamers are the worst fucking people. And he's right.
I don't
Absolutely right.
take a problem. Like that is my hobby of choice, and there are so many times when I'm like embarrassed to be part of that community.
It gets
When
so
Gamergate
bad.
and things to this effect. I mean, absolutely, it is homophobic, misogynistic, abusive, gross on so many levels,
Yeah.
and it's the art that I love. And there frequently will find little corners of hope, and this film was one of those, right? Like it was just like, hey, here's the struggles of some earnest, hardworking people who ultimately, and it was fun for me, right? This is one of those, probably for you guys too, when you watched it, knew that all of those games were, I mean, just runaway successes.
Yeah.
And so knew that, like, I knew Phil was not going to kill himself. I knew that game destroyed. And so for me, it was like an attentionless experience, but knowing that at the end of this, that through all of that turmoil, there's success. And the other thing is too, I know, sorry, I just filibustering here. The other thing is I've seen so many examples, and you guys probably have too, of people who are so gross and be unbelievably successful. It's nice to see people that I would assert are probably pretty, like, tell me that Team Meat aren't like really good people.
They are
Yeah.
my favorite.
Right?
My
And to see
favorite.
good people be successful is something I always want to see, be it in film or in real life. Anyway, so I think this movie's magic.
But you are killing it at transitions today because I wanted to talk about Team Meat and their
Yes.
success and seeing how it's less of, oh, we have money, now we're done, but how it went back into The Binding of Isaac.
Sure.
Which also was
Runaway
a
success.
terrifying success.
Yes.
Terrifying.
That game
But
bothers me so
great.
much.
I've
but
never
it's great.
played it.
Oh, it's
Dude, it's an
wonderful.
awesome roguelike, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would highly recommend it.
Okay.
really
Give me the it's
interesting.
this meets this pitch. It's like
impossible.
Spelunky meets like
No,
terrible
no,
night
no.
childhood.
It's
It's a dungeon crawler.
Okay.
You go. It's more like. It's Nightmare Legend of Zelda.
I mean, look, just
Soul.
right there.
It's
just,
Nightmare Legend of Zelda,
that's-
where you have an abusive mother that you're trying to run from instead of save the princess.
your weapon are your tears.
Yeah, you fire your
Jesus.
tears at your.
That's how you shoot at your enemies, with your tears.
And there are piles of poo and spiders and
It's terrifying. It's terrible. It's so bleak, but
Multiple
it is
endings
so
as well.
interesting.
Is that right? Okay.
So
multiple endings,
interesting.
but the boss fights are gross, disgusing. Various power-ups that you may not even see during various runs.
Sure.
It completely changes it up the entire time. I absolutely love it.
Every time.
Okay.
But they commenting on so from this they just moved from one project to the next and they kept working on that until it like I think even up to like a year or so ago it got like its final version of release with all of the bells and whistles that they could have imagined, but people were super into it still that iconic art style following what Super Meat Boy was.
He's got a great art style.
Yeah.
I
So
think
does
it's
things.
amazing.
Ugh. But I loved how they took their success and shared it with the ones that they loved. Instead of just going, they went, okay, I have a house now, but I surprised my parents with a car.
Oh my
I
gosh,
know.
that story I just sat there.
Right?
So great.
Again,
So
such
sweet.
good people.
They're wonderful.
And I think Ed is very compelling, right? Like, and
He is
maybe more so in this
fascinating.
one. Maybe more so in this one than the last one.
Yeah, a lot of this felt like the Ed McMillan
Yep.
McMillan show. It was
very much so.
you know, he had a lot going on too, I guess. And I guess he stayed more in the public eye afterwards.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah, but like,
Doing stuff wise.
I loved. So for me, probably my favorite part of this whole Life After was the scene where Ed is walking through their like case of memorabilia, people that either they created or they're seeing, and again bringing something to like all of those retail packages, right? Like literally, it was on shelves in stores, and he made it, and he had this little tribute to it, and something he's like clearly still very proud of, and I think that was so cool. He lit up in a way that he kind of hadn't the rest of either of the two films.
And I also liked from that segment well, for Russia, we were thinking of a certain thing, but we went, why don't we just have fans create a Russian style cover?
Yep.
And keeping it with the people.
Yeah.
They're still amongst the people, despite the few people that try to kick them out of it with irresponsible social media usage, which is very unfortunate. South Park's dealing with the very serious notion of quitting Twitter, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying reality that we live in today. I agree. Team Meat's story, and I said it last time, is just because of the rise and fall and how positive, despite how the movie started with, where is it? I don't care. Where is it?
Yeah.
Like, starting with that, they still remain relatively positive.
Yeah.
And only became better people as a result. You didn't see anybody like crash and burn in the movie.
Yep.
In the
Right.
movie. It was unfortunate to see Phil Fisher's currently working on Fez 2 and going, well, he's not.
No, I know.
That came up and it was like, oh.
It's so
They just
sad.
need a nope across the screen.
Whoops.
Just a quick edit.
Yeah,
we
just-
were wrong.
Or like we
don't talk
asterisk.
about it.
We don't talk about Fez 2. Goodness. Thank you, Rob S., for joining us live in chat and leaving us #pretentious clouds. So one of the interesting things that I liked about this is they took the idea and the brand of Indie Game the Movie and expanded it to talk to more developers.
They did.
So we got to hear about the development of Passage, Spelunky, and Ellis. Have you played any of these games? No? You haven't played Spelunky?
So no, I know.
Spelunky was
I'm not
everywhere
proud
and
of this.
free everywhere.
I know.
I
I probably downloaded it 3 times. I am not proud of the fact that. So he saw some money. I haven't played Spelunky, nor had I heard of Passage. I mean, had you guys? Was
I
this?
had
Passage I
not.
had
That
not.
was fascinating.
It was really interesting, right?
That
But
was
like,
cool.
it's rare that there is especially something they would spend time on a documentary about, like a game in the spotlight. I'm pretty up on that whole space, and just the like he said, like especially that comment. He said, well, Passage is the game that I'm actually like known for, and I was like, wait, what?
Well,
By who?
yeah,
By
totally.
my daughter.
Yes, son, long hair. I don't know. I thought it was a dude.
That was a very quick segment.
that was my
And I apologize.
I'm
No,
looking
I'm
at
not sure.
Child.
I literally went.
By his child.
I literally said out loud, if I ever have a son, there's no way his hair is getting that long.
long hair.
Wasn't a good look.
Which of these 3 games were you most interested in? Passage?
No, I mean, I think Passage seemed cool just because of the options that you kind of had with it. And I liked that concept of if you don't pay attention to what's around you, you just take 5 minutes and you're done with the game.
I know, right?
Like, how interesting.
And he probably had stats on what percentage of people could.
I know you go, wow, that was dumb. I just paid for 5 minutes of a game. It's like, well, you didn't actually play the game then.
All-time best support answer. Did you press up? Was pretty good.
Did you turn it off
No.
and turn it back on again?
Default answer.
Why not?
Which one did you find the most interesting, Mark?
I mean, I liked. Since I've played Spelunky,
Yes.
it was cool. All of these I felt should have gotten a sequel about them. I wanted to hear more about all of these stories, and we got to see the developers of Spelunky at that game jam.
Yep.
Yes.
But we didn't really get to see, we got to see why people develop and the type of things that they like to
Yeah.
develop, and the joy of game creation without seeing anything really from it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it seemed a little hollow or incomplete, but it was a nice start.
Sure.
But I think Ellis.
Oh, the side-scrolling runner, right?
No.
Nope.
The mobile game.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
With the shapes and such.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I liked
Okay.
the entire story of. I was
That
like,
was
okay,
cool.
that doesn't need a whole segment.
No.
This whole segment
No.
tells the entire story.
Totally agreed.
It's
Yeah,
like,
you
oh, it was
covered
my
it all.
birthday and it came out and I got the idea. And
Yeah.
it's like cool. Telling a
Were you
great
familiar
story.
with Ellis before?
I was not.
Neither was I.
Yeah.
And
No.
I still haven't downloaded it. And you changed that. I thought, if I can take one step back,
Yeah, go ahead.
I thought this spelunky conversation around the level design was fascinating.
Oh, that was
Agreed.
amazing.
I mean, so because
Yeah.
that's one of the things I've always wrestled with. How do you balance, without intentionality, how do you balance smart level design with procedural generated? And their approach to that and just how smart that was, ensuring that, it's well constructed and there's always this critical path. And like him talking
Right.
through all of that was fascinating. And actually a lot more simple than I would have anticipated.
super simple.
Right?
I mean, I still couldn't do it myself.
It's very
but-
smart, right? But like that algorithm was not incredibly complicated, and would need to be for like the size of that studio or whatever. Like, but they built an amazing game very
Right.
smartly.
A very popular game.
Totally.
That everybody on this table has played. Clearly, but
Oh, so many times.
all the time.
I got to the end.
I think
incredible.
I think the thing that also made it engaging was the simplicity that you could follow along to. You can go, oh, zeros and ones. Oh, zero, like, oh, that's this, that's this. That. Oh, cool.
Right.
Then you just put them all on a line. That's coding.
Yep.
Yeah.
You just got a basic, very basic
Very basic.
introduction into what coding is.
And I love transcendently smart people who are able to distill complex ideas like an algorithmic level design into something that was very digestible.
Yeah, something you could actually explain to other people.
Yes.
I mean, because coming up with that idea
Yep.
it takes a vast knowledge, of coding and how to do that. But he explained it, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I get what you're doing.
For sure.
So going back a little bit to the internet comments, seeing or just comments in general in reaction to this
Yeah.
film in general, did you think Phil Fish was going to react the way he did to the screening of this movie? Because we saw that little glimpse of him watching with the directors.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
I was a little surprised that he was so...
Positive.
so emotional and positive about it.
So that begs another question.
Go ahead.
Did you think that it portrayed him in a negative light in the first film? Because by that,
It goes back to
I
what I
don't
said.
mean to put words in your mouth.
No, it's fine. I go back to what I said about public perception. I think it presented him honestly.
I agree.
And that type of honesty these days isn't looked at with a passive eye.
Right.
People see
Right.
that and they consider arrogance.
Yep.
They think haughtiness.
Yep.
All sorts
Oh,
of
yeah.
things. And watching this movie back when it came out and watching it now, I had a completely different view of Phil Fish. So seeing his reaction, while surprising, was also very refreshing
Yeah.
to go, oh, he's okay with this.
because that was
Yeah.
him. It was an honest portrayal, right? Like
Right.
so for me, I wasn't shocked at all. In fact, it humanizes him in a way that would be, it cataloged this tremendous struggle.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's kind of a beautiful thing. And I loved the most telling piece of that was when he was talking to his friend, and one of his friends said that he liked him better after having watched the film, and
Yeah.
humanized him in a way that of course he was excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think he would have reacted negatively to it.
No.
Acting like, oh, why would you paint me in
Oh,
that
okay,
light?
that's what I wanted
No,
to- yeah.
that's not what
Yeah.
what I expected or anything.
Okay.
But to see him get that emotional,
Sure.
More
about,
emotional
I
than
thought
the
to be
actual
excited
reaction.
about it.
Yeah.
But that was a very visceral kind of reaction.
And I
that
think
he had.
so recently I just had an experience that isn't this, but I had I'm the founder of an interactive football team, right? We're building the first fan run team, and as we're documenting that, Esquire magazine is doing an article on us that comes out in February. So check out February 2017 for the franchise article on this technology that we're building, but they embedded with us for a week, and it was. You very quickly forget that they're there, and then at the end, at least I did, and at the end of the embedding, I was like, oh no. We were just ourselves, and how much of that. So I can't even imagine what Phil must be going with, because we're on edge, right? He's going to come out and embed one more time, and then they're going to write this article, and it's going to be my parents are going to be reading some of the things that I said, And so I don't know what that's like. And it's got to be a crazy experience to watch that and hope it turns out well and is flattering to some degree and humanizing to the degree that it was.
I think if I went through an event as trying as all of the events that were presented in such a heightened sensitivity by Phil himself, and got a chance after the fact to see 100%, not remember, but see 100% what I said, and to go from I'm going to kill myself if this game isn't finished to the game being done and it being responded to positively and being ultimately a success. I would treasure that. That hard time.
Totally.
So much more, and the fact that it is documented, I'd be like, do you have any more raw footage that I can just have?
Yes.
So I can just
Take
look
it all.
at it. Exactly.
Yeah.
I won't show it or anything, but I'm happy with how positively he reacted to it, and it wasn't a surprise.
I mean, totally. I really liked that, and I also really liked kind of how they started on Phil too. It was an interesting bookend where he said like, the game's not done, but it's pretty done, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how successful this game is. I made the game I wanted to make, how I wanted to make it, and like, what a cool. I don't know. Again, it's a cool story, start to finish. Good for him.
Speaking of stories,
Yes.
last week we had brought up, instead of casting, because I do recast the documentary, we had brought up which of the 3 games deserves a movie adaptation. So between Braid, between Super Meat Boy, and between Fez,
Yes.
we answered the question last week, and
Yes.
thank you to everybody who responded with their answers. But what of these 3 games do you think deserves a movie adaptation?
I yelled into my phone, God damn it, Braid needs to be a movie. Yeah, so I think I don't want to spoil anything. I will say it's about perception. They spoke to it, right? The way paint, it's something that can be, it's a reality that was constructed and can be altered. I think to some degree that could lend itself well to a filmic adaptation. Would be very excited to see. And I think, like, again, the score is so powerful. All of that seems to translate very well, especially when and if you finish it, some of the themes that play out toward the end of the game would make for an unbelievable film.
I agree.
So
Very good. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
For more on that, go back and listen to our last week's episode where we talked all about it. But this week, we are flipping the script again. We can't recast the documentary, so we're
Get really dramatic.
who would you have played Phil Fish?
oh, it's crazy, and we're back. So we're going to do something a little bit different. This is a behind the scenes on the development of certain games from a completely different point of view. What game would you want to see an indie game the movie level behind the scenes documentary for?
Stacey, I gotta hear your answer.
Oh, well,
I gotta
okay.
hear your
I
answer.
picked an indie game and I picked like a major
Look at this.
game.
She's double flipping the scripts. Or
I'm
triple
sorry, I
flipped.
know.
It's back where it
Well, I
started.
wasn't sure what you wanted. So.
Awesome.
It's okay.
No, cool.
She's turning the tables, but it's a circular table.
I get it. So
So
lazy
just keep-
Susan.
Spin it
Yeah,
around.
keep going.
We're getting back there. Which one do you want first?
Go indie.
Yeah.
All right, so indie. I would love to see about Undertale. What
interesting.
went into?
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also huge, so I don't. That's more like Netflix series.
Probably. But behind the scenes there, what inspired a lot? I mean, there are so many unbelievably interesting design choices and elements that went into that game. I mean, not story notwithstanding, just even how the battles are set up.
For sure.
It is such a unique system to even just fight, where you're either
Yeah.
dodging or you're it's. I think that might actually increase my interest in the game, because I'm like whatever on the whole
Not into
Undertale
it.
thing, but I like how people are reacting to it.
And do you find yourself, when you see behind the scenes type things, are you more invested in that property than the original property? Is that like normally how that would work for you?
Not always.
Okay.
It makes me feel one way or the other about it.
Sure.
Depending.
Okay.
So it could make or break it.
But it could help me appreciate it a little bit
Fair
more.
enough.
Yeah. What was your major one?
So my major one, I think the Uncharted series is fascinating,
Yeah.
just because of the way that they use motion capture. I mean, you essentially have actors playing the roles. So to see how that relationship works, and I know they put out a lot of behind the scenes stuff. They do have, a lot of glimpses that we can look at. They're all over the place. But just a full, like, cohesive documentary on the creation of that and what it goes into, like with the actors especially.
There is a lot of behind the scenes
There
footage.
is a lot.
I've watched
but like a full.
all
I'll
of
take a
it.
movie. I know. I have
All of it
to.
obsessively.
Oh,
like
it's
watching,
wonderful.
especially with 4, right? And watching Troy Baker and like, yeah, he's fun to watch just in general.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the Naughty Dog, the Last of Us documentary?
No, I haven't.
Unbelievable. If you
Did they
have
make
not, It's made. It's on
Okay.
YouTube. It's for free. It's like an hour and 10 minutes.
Okay.
I think it is a best in class and documentary hard stop. But if you're interested in Naughty Dog properties at all or how video games get made, it is incredible. It is my favorite game of all time. I'm a little bit biased, but seeing the journey from that game is unbelievable. Cannot recommend it enough.
Maybe next time we're in documentary territory, we can do that one.
Please,
Maybe.
please.
Yeah. And that
Gotta
might help.
finish that
And that
game
might help turn
eventually.
my head on that game as well.
Yeah, that
have
game
you not played the
frustrated
game?
me.
I'm not.
We're gonna get on this fight.
We're not going to talk about this. We're not going to talk about this right now.
Such a peacemaker.
We're
All
not
right,
gonna,
fair
we're
enough.
not
Okay,
gonna talk
okay.
about this right now.
All right.
But actually, I think we have. But either way, we'll talk about
Fair
it in a
enough.
moment.
Okay.
If we went with a major studio, I would be very interested in Overwatch because it was
Oh,
Project Titan for
Titan.
years.
Yes.
For
I would love
sure.
to see all of the stuff that they were building
Yep.
for, and what was the decision to go. We can't
We
do this
can't
anymore.
just.
Right.
But let's,
No.
But let's keep that time-bending British girl, please.
Hang on to that.
Cheers, love.
The cavalry is
Museum.
here. I am here.
Yeah, that's a way better than me trying to butcher that accent. Thank you for saving that, Mark.
And if we're going along the line of favorite games of all time, I would love to see the creation of Journey
Okay.
from Santa Monica Studio, or that game studio.
Me too.
And or even just about Santa Monica, or
Yeah.
that game studio, all the way from Flower to
Yeah.
Journey, and then people splitting off. Maybe see a little bit about Abzu. Who knows? Just because the worlds that they create have deep messages without even using words. And to go a little bit more into that, there's actually, if you're a fan of Journey, and you're a fan of the soundtrack,
I am.
The artist has the entire recording as one track on YouTube
Yeah.
with commentary. So it's not like him going, oh, so for this oboe, it's annotations on the video. So when tracks start, it's like, oh, for this part I was thinking. So you get live commentary
cool.
in text over
nice.
it, and it's awesome. So cool. I would highly recommend it.
I've always said that I want to play that game with director commentary in the game, where it literally has a Zach Morris timeout, and here's why we built this, and this is the intention behind the sand, and this is how it's open to interpretation, but here's how these are the themes we were trying to communicate here. I would play that all day.
I feel like that's something that Braid needs.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that would
No,
make him feel a lot
totally.
better about it.
I would.
Put that director's
Yes. Hey,
a
Soldier
very
Boy, have you
interesting
seen that in the
concept.
options
Yeah.
menu? Go down to
watch the
watch
director's
that. It's not what I
commentary.
said. Soldier Boy.
You'll understand it a lot better.
Yeah.
Jonathan Blow, tell him. But I mean, I think, I don't really think you need to convince Jonathan Blow, hey, do you want to talk about your game?
Well,
He's already got it recorded
Yeah, no, at
there.
this point.
It's ready.
Yeah, for sure. For
ready to go.
sure.
He can build his own set and record it in his mind. So let us
In his
know.
mind?
Yeah,
In the-
yeah, build it in his mind. And then build it in real life.
Oh, yes, that you can do.
I messed up. Let us know which video game you would want to see a behind-the-scenes documentary on in the comments down below. Use the hashtag VGM Anatomy. Patrick, you had another thought.
Oh no, just I had my AAA game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, so the one thing is that just really quickly, I think Bioshock Infinite would be fascinating.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
To watch, right? So if you're unfamiliar with Bioshock, it's a lot of themes of like American exceptionalism, racism, religion. They have a first-person baptism in the first about 10 minutes of the game. It's incredible, and I think it represents kind of this renaissance in video game narrative. And it was also a very troubled development. They had like a very kind of not real E3 coming out party, right? Like where it was just kind of not that game, and none of that ever ended up in the final product. I think Ken Levine is impossibly
Yeah, Ken Levine is
interesting.
Ken Levine is one of those creators
I
that
totally agree.
Let's see behind the music on his life.
Yes.
And the fact I was super excited for the PlayStation Vita version that never came out.
Nope. Yeah. So I would love to kind of see how the evolution of that, because I think it was him driving that vision forward, and realities of budget and time and all that caught up with him eventually.
Sorry for moving past you. I thought you said there is one and it exists and it's for The Last of Us.
Yeah, no.
Suck it.
I have it. I'm happy.
Wish
Bye.
fulfilled. Yeah, no.
But-
you're good.
But in talking about all of these games and all of these stories, it really makes like the Bioshock collection just came out, so getting a chance to go back and play Infinite is.
Have you turned it on yet? Have you
At all?
played it? Yeah,
Oh, no, I
the
played it. Yeah,
collection.
I played it back. Not the collection.
Okay. So one of the things that I highly encourage people in the Bioshock collection, there is the DLC for Bioshock 2 is called Minerva's Den. It's
Yeah.
probably a 5-hour DLC.
No, but that's the best.
Alright.
That's supposedly the best DLC addition
I mean, totally. So the Tacoma guys, the guys that did Gone Home, the Fulbright company, they did this and then went out and started their own studio. It is arguably just the best DLC hard stop. It's
right.
I just played it this past week, and I like when the credits rolled, I just slow clapped. Just like,
Man, I gotta get
come
playing
on,
that.
it's just too good. So anyway,
Right.
can't recommend it enough. I think it's worth the purchase of that entire remaster.
Just for Minerva's Dead?
Yeah, I was really, it's neat. It's
Wow.
something else. Again, just real good. Rapture's rad.
So
and then it's-
Rapture is rad, but Columbia.
I agree,
yeah.
right?
It's beautiful.
I mean,
There are
in some places.
And
Well,
yeah.
okay, beautiful and terrifying kind of.
Yeah, but again, that's like so bold. And I know, like, whatever, you can make the argument that they never resolve a lot of that, but touching on race and religion and American exceptionalism and the way they wrap that back to original Bioshock is transcendent. Like, that is some of the smartest. Did you play the DLC in those as well? Burial at Sea?
The fact that I respect the fact that they weren't working on them during development,
Right.
But I was so disconnected,
Sure.
that it was past for me.
It was done, and
Yeah.
that was with me too. I was done with it, and I left it at that.
And to be
when it
perfectly
came
honest,
out.
I like Bioshock, but I liked the changes that they made for Infinite.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And having more space,
Yeah.
having more room, and being a little bit more forgiving with this and that. So putting us back in Rapture and making it a little bit more stealthy, it was like, well, that's not the game that I like. That's the other one. That's just me. That's just the thing with me. Stealth games bother me because I'm bad at them, and I recognize that completely.
I don't
yeah,
do
yeah.
stealth. I run in and I just cause a scene.
Yeah, no, I'm stealthy until it goes
yeah.
to shit. I'm absolutely no terrible. I mean, but I will say, I don't ever think like their gameplay is an important element of Bioshock for sure, but that is so narratively driven that like I think those games are worth playing, especially that second half of it. But they wrap your experience in Columbia back to Rapture in a magnificent way.
For Burial at Sea.
I mean, they stuck the landing in a way that I think few properties do, game or otherwise, right? Like, and it's real good.
Okay.
So yeah, I again, without giving anything away, I can't recommend it enough.
Okay,
So.
maybe I will pick that one up. So after today, did anybody get inspired? What is everybody inspired to play today? Now that we're back in video game space, everybody's feeling sort of different ideologies, different types of game. Do we want to go out and play new games we haven't played, or do we want to stick to the favorites? Do we want to stick to Last of Us's remastered, Bioshock remastered, Journey remastered? Any sort of new feelings about video games that we received from watching this documentary?
That's an excellent question, Stacey. What do you look
Yeah,
pensive?
I mean, I know. Well, because here's the thing that I'm looking at. I'm like, I have a whole list of video games I want to go play, and the sad truth is, I'm gonna go home and play Overwatch for 6 hours, and this is what I'm going to do because this has become
Cheers,
my
love.
life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to play that, and I want to play that. I still need to finish the last Uncharted game.
Oh, you should. Yeah, do that.
I need to finish. We're like most of the way through it, and I just need to finish it. But Overwatch is here, and
finish that.
It's been terrible.
Man, that ending.
I know.
No, I get it. I went down the
too.
Overwatch hole as well. I literally run around all the time to myself saying things like "It's high noon." Like nobody knows what I'm talking about, but I was like, I do. It's great.
You're in on the joke. That's
Yeah,
all that
I mean,
matters.
totally. I'm making myself laugh. I'm all for revisiting some of those games. Mark, you asked about like seeing some of the remasters. I think I'm not in on all of them, but like for example, Bioshock the original, I haven't played since again release. It's rare that I ever played a game, but I'm really excited about some of these remasters because it's giving me kind of a pretext to go revisit them. I have now played Last of Us through a second time, so there are those. I'm usually Cult of the New guy. Like I'm excited about. I mean, the next couple weeks we've got Mafia comes out this week. Gears 4 is out very soon. Battlefield 1 is out in not very long. Dishonored, which was one of my favorite games, that was I think 2014 release, 2013.
It was a good 13, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably my favorite release that year, so I'm pretty excited about that coming out this year. So I'm excited. We're right in the thick of it. It's
I think our engineer is excited about the Arkham Collection.
Yeah.
That's coming out. I mean, I never played Asylum, but
You didn't?
No, it's anytime I would borrow it. Anytime I'd want to borrow it from a friend. Anytime it's like, you know what, time to play Batman. I would go into my local GameStop. We're totally sold out. Well, I guess I'm not supposed to play it, but I played City. I played Night.
Oh, you're gonna like I'm so jealous. You're gonna play this like in a lot of people it's their favorite of that trilogy.
Sure.
Not mine.
Quadrilogy.
But it's a real good Metroidvania game. It's real good.
I'm back into the Destiny grind, and I say what you want about Destiny, but I love that game.
Yeah.
Anytime I go right back in, it's like, all right, I've
too.
never left.
Me too.
I've never left.
I went
and it's
Great
fun.
time. Do you beat the campaign yet?
I'm one mission left.
Right on,
Yeah, but
right on.
I'm doing a lot of exploring parts. I don't do raids.
Nope.
Like I just haven't, but I still enjoy the game a
I
lot.
think they said that like literally like 1% of people ever experienced that thing. That they've spent probably 40% of their time on building out this really successful raid. So
I would love to play Vault of Glass at some point.
yeah.
The very first one.
Yes.
But
The only one I did.
There's a lot of games out there to play. I'm beyond excited that we're a part of this world.
Yeah,
that
me too.
We have a chance to have a forum to discuss something like this. And Indie Game the Movie has given us the opportunity to talk about design. And we're going to take this opportunity, much like how we have our cheat days where we do movies about video games as
Yep.
opposed to movies based on video games. I think we should add documentaries into it as well.
into it. There's some
We'll
good
do
ones.
The Last of Us
Yes.
in a couple of
Some
months.
cheats, yeah.
But in terms of what we're going to be doing next, we're going back down into that wonderful store well of films because it's October.
It's Halloween.
It's spoopy season.
I blame you.
It is
so
Halloween.
blame you.
October 1st, it's Halloween.
I will arguably say that the one that we picked is very divisive. A lot of people like it. A lot of people don't like it. So
A lot of people are idiots.
Well,
I
tell
would
us how
like-
you really feel.
I would like to quote
Let's get it started.
I would like to quote Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance. In 2 weeks' time, we are going to be covering Silent Hill right here on Video Game Movie Anatomy. But until then, Patrick to the D's,
Yeah.
where can the folks find you on the internet?
I mean, you almost nailed it. I'm at Peter
Not-
Dees. Come find me. I've got a video game podcast called Pixel by Pixel that we are restarting back up. We were on hiatus for the past couple months, so excited to do that. Stacey.
Ooh, you can find me on Twitter at Stacey Shuttles, or mostly on Twitter or all over the web at Nerds Doing Stuff. I got a lot of nerdy stuff going on that we're doing, so check it out.
Yes, and make sure to check out their recap from Long Beach Comic Con. You got a couple more people writing for you.
Yes.
nice.
And Patrick, don't devalue the fact that on our sister network, AfterBuzz TV, you're going to be hosting your first show in a long time.
It has been a minute.
For Rooster Teeth's
Yes.
Crunch Time.
Possibly excited about
Which
that.
is a very good property. The first 2 episodes are on YouTube. Watch them. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Donica. I'm going to be a part of that Crunch Time show in one way or another. And then also on the Popcorn Talk Network, I host Jedi Alliance, which is our Star Wars themed show. So make sure, I was in the Midwest for a second, so make sure to join us for our Star Wars show every Monday at 4 p.m. But 2 weeks, Silent Hill, be here, use hashtag VGM Anatomy, follow us at the Popcorn Talk. But until next time, we'll see you in the spooky town in the hills with fog.
In Halloween
Run for your
time.
lives. Don't
Spoopy.
watch the
Too spooky.
show.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.